learn something? Just shut up.
Yes, how's it going today?
It's going great, Janek. Thanks for joining me to talk about your film, Mondo, Hollywoodland. And I guess the pitch is a psychedelic guide to Hollywood. Boy, is that a great description of this film.
Yeah, no, it's basically kind of is an homage to these kind of 60s, 70s psychedelic films that I grew up watching and stuff like that. And it follows this mushrooms dealer who traverses around Hollywood and tries to find the meaning of Mondo. So yeah, it's kind of a crazy psychedelic ride.
And the man from the fifth dimension, don't forget him.
Exactly. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, because as I was watching this, I thought of those exact kind of films too. But I watch them on Turner Classic Movies. They have on TCM Underground. They show all those psychedelic films from the 60s. And I just think that's what I'm dying to ask someone like you who makes an experimental film, is that there's definitely a framework to this movie, but I'm just saying, where did all those images come from? Are they dreams, or are they just influences? Because some of the stuff is so out there, but someone can't sit down and go, okay, it's just got to come naturally. So what is your thinking process when you create a film like this?
Well, a lot of the kind of like the origin of it all came from this screening of Mondo Hollywood that Paul Thomas Anderson presented at the AFI Film Festival in like 2014. And I watched it and was like, oh, what if I did a VR version of like Hollywood? And I was originally going to do this, VR was kind of this like thing that was happening. And then I was like, oh, what if I did that? And I was just going to do this narration over VR. So you kind of felt like you were the man from the fifth dimension. And then I got rid of the idea. I was really fortunate enough to get some like advice from Francis Ford Coppola. Even I used to like bother his team to be like, can I speak to him? This is like years ago. And because, obviously this project started a while ago, and he was like, don't worry about the technology or any of those things. Just make a story, and don't worry about like the camera you have, or like, I didn't have money to have like a Red or an Alexa, so I just said, okay, I'll use my iPhone. So I started just shooting stuff, and then Chris Blim, the lead in the movie, me and him kind of started we teamed together to kind of start writing it more of as a narrative film. So a lot of these crazy kind of psychedelic imagery really came from when me and Blim would really just sit down and start writing out scenes and so on. And then Marcus was another co-writer who helped kind of, structure it more. So there was that kind of underneath all the craziness, there was a base of formula, Yeah,
because you tell the stories of the Titans, the weirdos, and the dreamers. You kind of have those chapters.
There's like eight three-act structures going on and kind of in this movie. So it's really, it actually is weirdly complex, but like, you're not supposed to really be conscious of it. You're supposed to just go along for the ride. But like underneath it, we wanted to make sure, all three of us as writers, to make sure that there was like a foundation.
And usually for experimental films like this, they're usually on a short film subject. You attempted a feature. Was that more of a challenge to keep this kind of trip going for a full-length feature?
No, if anything, it was it was much harder because ultimately, like, it was this kind of sprawling thing. Like, the script is like, if I remember, we would write a lot as we were shooting, so something would even happen, and then like in real life, and we would say, oh, let's rework the screenplay around this, there's a few like set pieces that were almost accidental, so we were always writing on the fly. But no, like if you look at we looked at the script, because like the Academy Awards, the Academy of Science and Motion Pictures asked for the screenplay, so we're like, oh, we have to actually like get this. Where's this actual screenplay? And it ended up being like, it's like 140 pages. So yeah, it felt like a lot of vignettes. It felt like a lot of short films. But ultimately, there was this large story about Boyle and his like crazy journey, and then having to do the Titans, Weirdos, and Dreamers. So it was a lot to kind of, like, the original version was like 2.5 hours, so we had to like keep cutting and cutting.
But as the creative force behind this movie, you know what you want, what the writers and what you're trying to interpret. How do you convey that to the actors? Because there's so many day in the life scenes in this movie, and also viewers have to keep an open mind, because this is not structured beginning, middle, and end like a normal movie.
Right.
So this is artistic endeavor to the core. So how do you interpret that to the actors? Do you give them like a free lane, say, look, here's the essence of this scene, or this is what I want you on, let's just see what happens?
Yeah, so I have to say we were all extremely fortunate to have really, really great actors who really trusted us, because so many times it would be like, here's the scene, and they're like, where does this fit in this? Like, what is this film? And so it was, we were lucky to have really like just actors who were really talented, very talented with improv and all those things. But yes, I think ultimately what we want to do is we want to set up, okay, what's the spirit of the scene? And then we would kind of hone in on it, throw some kind of, stuff that maybe we wanted to try out, or maybe the actor wanted to try out. Because we use a lot of people from UCB, from improv, like a pretty decent chunk. And then so everything was kind of collaborative. Like we always wanted to make sure that like the actors had their input, and obviously that made it so much better because they're going to be able to do stuff way better than I'll ever be able to write. You know what I mean? Like a funny comedian. So
Right.
So a lot of that came from the actors, and they just kind of trusted us, and we trusted them, and then just kind of shot a lot. I mean, it was shooting on a phone too, so it didn't feel so like finite. We shooting on film. You're like, okay, we were just always kind of rolling.
Right. And since this was essentially an LA story, was this guerrilla style, or how did you make this film? Was it on a legit, or did some scenes you were like with your phone, right? It's like, okay, guys, just walk down the street, and how did you prepare?
Oh, it was all almost, none of it was really legit. I mean, like, yeah, it was all guerrilla because it was on a phone. And if we had Alexa or Red or like a real DP, I shot it. I'm not a DP. Then it would be impossible to kind of do. I mean, I don't even know how you would even, because so many of the times we would be like out at a bar with my friends who were in the movie, kind of like, oh, let's do a scene right now. I mean, you just wouldn't be able to do that normally. Or like, just having the camera to be in your pocket at all times, 24/7, and then having your friends be in the movie. It's just a totally different way of making a movie. There was a schedule, especially towards the end, like the heist stuff, and like that was a little bit more structured, like a shoot. But there were parts, like I'd say a third of the movie is like, or maybe a fourth is like was really spontaneous shooting and stuff like that.
And tell me about the first time you showed your first cut to an audience or to friends or family, and what was their reaction? Did you prepare them, or just said, open your mind and just let it happen?
Oh, there's actually a screening that was like horrifying. I think I call it like what is it, the Bloody Friday when Nixon, I call it like Bloody Sunday, I think, because it was like, I remember people being like, what is this, like what like and I was just like horrified. I was like, oh God, like there's none of this makes sense. So yeah, that was scary. but it was good because it's like, oh, okay, well, what is confusing? Like I remember, like even earlier on in screenings, a lot of people, this was shot a while ago, and then we were cutting for a long time, so some actually external factors change how audiences perceive it. Because earlier on, I remember Antifa, people would have to be like, people were like, well, I don't know what Antifa is, you have to explain that. Now I don't need to put in a title card to explain what Antifa is, because over the past 2 years, they've obviously, that's become a more social issue that people, I mean, the Fox News is, you'd think that Antifa is going to just come and destroy our house, this interview right now. So like, it's so also like some external factors changed that a little bit too. But yeah, earlier on, there was some screenings where people were like, this is crazy. And then there were some that people were like, oh, this is wild and fun. But it was a lot of screenings and editing over like over a year. So we chipped away at it.
I mean, this is film as an art form in its rawest, purest form, so you're going to have someone look at something and look at this film and go, wow, that was really, wild and out there. And other people, like I said, are spoon-fed beginning, middle, and end. They don't understand things like this. So it's so interesting to find a filmmaker who makes an experimental film, because it's so bold and brave, especially a feature-length film. But you have a champion in actor James Cromwell. I mean, he, I spoke to him last week. He said such great things about you and about your vision, and he's a champion for you. So tell me about, how did that relationship come about, being the executive producer?
Yeah, I mean, he's the best, and I should say too, it's like, doing the boldness of an experimental film. Like I said, it really does take a village. Like it was a vision of all of us, right? It was Chris Blim is the producer on the film, co-writer, star of it. Really, me and him push to make something unique. And that was so much of what his voice was, because he is such an abstract and interesting way of creating things, like, you know, really brilliant in that respect. And like Marcus too, the writer. So no, I really took a village to make something like this. So I wouldn't say it's one person's vision, but yeah, I'm just really fortunate to have a lot of cool, talented friends. But Cromwell is, yeah, he's awesome. I mean, I first reached out to him in like 2013 because I made for years I was making a documentary on the war on terror and the war in Afghanistan and all that, and how it impacts civil rights and civil liberties at home and kind of the botched foreign interventions. And, you know, this was during Obama's presidency. So it wasn't the most popular take, you know, really like pinpointing his like botched Libya effort, his surge in Afghanistan, the drone strikes. Yeah, it wasn't really like, it was kind of not talked about too much. There's obviously a lot of great journalists like Jeremy Scahill and like Michael Hastings, the late Michael Hastings. But like, I was like, okay, well, I need maybe somebody in the industry to maybe help and put it out there. So Cromwell responded and he said he loved the film and he wants to help champion it. So he helped me out so much with that. And then with this, it was a whole nother can of worms, because I was like, who would back this thing? You know, I don't even know. This is nuts. And I sent it to him kind of like, oh, he probably wouldn't want to put his name on something like this. But I don't know. He's just the man. I mean, I was so excited when he wanted to come on board and champion the film, because he is so respected. Not only is he such a great actor and an Oscar-nominated actor and all these great films, but he's like a real activist. I mean, yeah, like on the ground, like really doing the work. And I'll always admire. I look up to him for that in many respects. So.
Well, you know, that's just the icing on the cake. You know, congratulations on this movie, man. It's a trip, and I love being challenged, because I see so many movies a year that are just. And I love movies like this. So congratulations on it. And then I wish you the best of luck with it.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jeffrey. Thanks so much for taking the time to interview both of us. I really appreciate it.